The study session is called to order. Will the secretary please note that all board members are present with the exception of Representative Marquez, Board Member Napa, and we will continue moving forward. Please note that today's study session is being live streamed. Also, please note that we have Spanish interpreting services available in the back of the room. Tech team, can we get the audio?
Si necesita intérprete en español, favor de mirar a nuestro intérprete que se encuentra a un lado del cuarto. Gracias.
The first item on the agenda is 2A, Board Goals, Data Review. Ms. Andrade.
Well, good afternoon, President Pastor, members. Thank you for making time out of your busy day to be here early. I'm very excited about tonight, mostly because we get to show you the data from the board goals and the subsequent data as a result of it all, and I will talk about that a little bit later. But really, when I came on in 2023, we began developing a system monitoring that included strong collaboration with our campuses and our teacher teams. I want to give a huge shout out right now to the Achievement Division and every member that sits in that division. Laura Tejas, Tony Camp, Samantha Middle. I could go on and on with the names, but I'll miss somebody and then I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. The entire Achievement Division and all the departments played a role in this. We couldn't have done it without them, with the English language learners, with the data. And then next I want to go ahead and commend our campus leaders. Our campus leader principals were instructional leaders, or at least we've been moving them in that direction. This year they attended, and some of last year they attended data summits throughout the year where they really studied their data and got a little uncomfortable with it, and so that they could get comfortable with it. There were beautifully prepped activities that they could then turn and bring to their own instructional cabinets and continue to monitor their collaborative teams. I would be remiss not to shout out our collaborative teams, the ones right on the front level of the trenches, our teachers, the ones that, and our support staff that have that safe space for learning and the magic to take place. Without the collaboration of our team leaders, like our, well, they used to be called our PLC leaders, our instructional leaders, our ed mentors, our counselors. I mean, every piece of data that you look around this room, somebody in Phoenix Union contributed to. I also want to go back and say, like, without our freshman house and the strong foundation of that, we wouldn't have gotten to this level. So I want to give a shout out to our freshman teachers, our freshman house coordinators, and all of our administrators that put that ongoing effort into wrapping around our freshmen. So tonight you're going to see not just our board goals, our 4 board goals, which are around CCRI, ACT reading, ACT math, and English language learners. But you're going to see the subsequent system goals over here that happen. They also all happen to be climbing, which I'm excited about. Grad rate, dropout rate, that's the one you want to go down, by the way. CTE participation, CTE pass rates on technical skills assessments, program growth areas. FAFSA is the highest I've ever seen it in my time in the district, and I've been around for a while now. Freshman on Track has reached a new peak. It's an all systems go, and it has been since 2023, and I'm extremely proud of this data. We have moved the needle, not just in one area, but in multiple areas, which tells me it's working. And I'm excited to just move forward and continue this momentum. We've had, how did we do it? We have had tight focus. We're trying not to focus on 20 different things. We're trying to focus on our collaborative teams and getting teachers of the same content area to work together and have similar practices and share, because it's a very isolating career if not. And I think that that contributes to it. We've also really tried hard to have aligned systems at the district office to the campus and a tight focus on our board goals, our freshman house, our CTE. Those are like the big ones, right? Get kids involved in CTE, post-secondary plans, freshman house foundation, and our board goals of achievement. Through a lot of collaboration and a lot of communication, we are moving forward building a nimble system that you should be very proud of as a board, because all of you almost all of you, were on the board when I stepped on, and this is the result of 3 years of system improvement, and I'm extremely proud. And with that said, the devil in the detail, I will hand it over to Ms. Tejas.
Well, thank you, Ms. Andrade, and good afternoon, President Pastor Rivera, board members, and our community. As Ms. Andrade shared, you can hear the excitement. We're really looking forward to sharing our data, and we've got a fun, interactive afternoon planned for you. Board, as you adopted goals and focused on improving student outcomes, we really have anchored our work, as Ms. Andrade said, and become much more intentional about monitoring our data in partnership with you as the board, our campus leaders and teachers, and of course the district office. And as you will see soon, our focus is really paying off. The data provides evidence of our progress and also shines a flashlight on areas of opportunity for improvement. So today for you, board, it is about increasing your comfort and our comfort, your ability to speak to the data as it relates to our goals. So here's a breakdown approximately of how we're going to be using our time today. As you can see, we're going to have you up and moving, learning, talking about our data, and let's talk about the protocol that we're planning to use. So we're going to use an instructional practice called a gallery walk to help us increase our understanding of the data. Now, as an added bonus, you can actually use this process in other settings too. If you're at a museum or art gallery, if you ever have that awkward experience of sitting next to someone and you don't really know what to say, here's some sentence stems that you can use. So we're going to start with a notice. This is a no judgment. It's just a fact statement about what you see. Then we're going to shift to a wonder. What are you curious about, or what would you like to see explained in more detail? And finally, we'll end with a question related to the data that you're seeing. So with that being said, let's take a look at an example. This is a chart of our ACT scores by governing board wards. The bar graph has a percentage of students who are proficient and highly proficient by ward. The darker shade on the graph is the percent of students who scored between 19 and 24 points. And just a reminder, that score of 19 is what the state says is proficient for high school graduation. The lighter shade represents students who are highly proficient. In other words, they scored a 25 or higher on the ACT. We begin with a notice, again, just stating the facts related to the side. So I have a couple of ones up there for you. So I notice when I look at this graph that Ward 1 and Ward 2 are reaching proficiency for reading nearly at 20%. I also notice that Ward 5 sits closer to 14%. Next, we'll shift to those wonder statements. What are we curious about? What might be more useful in explaining the why or that root cause? So in this case, I wonder what's different in the wards where more readers are reaching that level of proficiency. I also wonder if income levels in these wards maybe have an impact on this data. And finally, we would end with a question. In this case, I wonder what the gap looks like between the wards. Are we closing that gap? Are we increasing that gap? I'd be interested in looking at that over time. And then what does our partner district data say? So how are our 8th graders coming to us in terms of levels of preparation? So those are some examples related to this. So let's take a look at another data set. In just a few minutes, we're going to have you up and moving around, and this is a graph related to our English language learners. For context, our emerging bilingual students participate in the state-prescribed model with levels of proficiency determined based on skills in reading, writing, speaking, and listening. The graph on the left shows the breakdown of proficiency, and students are put into categories of pre-emergent or emergent or beginning. Basic, meaning they have some command of the language. Intermediate, meaning that they have functional language skills, probably socially speaking, but they're still working on developing those academic language skills. Below the graph, you'll see a chart that shows the total number of students for each proficiency level, and this is how the percent that you see on the bar graph is determined. Now on the right, you'll see the number of 28%. This is the percentage of students in the EL program who developed enough skills in reading, writing, speaking, and listening to be deemed proficient and able to move into mainstream courses. Now these students are still monitored for up to 2 years. So board, let's practice together. I'm going to give you a few minutes to look at the data what do you notice, what do you wonder, and what do you have a question about? So I'm going to give just a couple to look it over. You have anybody brave enough to share a notice? Again, this is just the facts, looking at the data. Anybody brave enough to share? I got great wait time. I was a teacher for a really long time. Board Member Oliver.
All right, here we go. So what I noticed is pre-emergent and basic are running side by side, even though their proficiency is, it equals about the same. And while intermediate seems to be moving along faster
Okay,
or at a higher rate.
great observation. Thank you. Anyone else want to share a notice? I noticed based on the graph below the bar graph, that chart, that our population of students in terms of the number of students in each category is pretty consistent as you look across the district. All right, let's move to wonders. What are you curious about, or what would you want to look at maybe that root cause? Board Member Meyer.
Yes, along the same lines of Board Member Oliver, I noticed the 51%, 52% difference. Well, the same, they're like about 1% difference between pre-emergent and basic. And that made me wonder if, I guess to what extent is the growth in that pre-emergent to basic part of the work that students have been doing in our curriculum? And it's outside of the district specifically. I've been wondering, like, how does the flow of students look for those who are pre-emergent? Like, I'm thinking about students like who have refugee status or who are moving here from another country otherwise. So it makes me think deeper about things outside of the district's immediate control and really like the societal part.
Great wonder, thank you.
Board Member Cross.
So so if a student comes in, they don't necessarily go into pre-emerging. They can actually go into intermediate depending upon how
Correct.
their English is. So when I look at these, and that doesn't necessarily mean 60% have moved into intermediate from pre-emergent. Some of them were just deemed that when they walked in the door.
So this is showing proficiency, meaning that students are moving along their learning. So they may have moved from pre-emergent to intermediate, they may have moved from basic to intermediate, they may have moved from intermediate, as you can see, to that reclassification rate. So they're progressing in their language skill development. Okay, so the last part of the exercise would be questions. So Board Member Meyer, you also kind of went there a little bit and you're wondering, that's okay. About a question, like what other factors, so what are they coming to us with in terms of their language skill development to Board Member Cross's, and what other types of things might affect their language development or their placement? Board Member Cruz Flores?
Yes, thank you. Age group? I would
Okay.
like to see the age group.
That's a question you have. What are the ages of our students
Yes,
in
ma'am.
each group? Okay, great. You'll probably notice that I'm not answering questions today because this is just designed to begin to get you going and around the data, developing your proficiency. So if that's something you really want to know, you'll have an opportunity towards the end just to say, this is something that we should bring forward as we're continuing to monitor data. That was a great example. Thank you. Okay.
Oh, I have a question as well.
Yes.
Of the 28%, my question is how many of them were in the pre or basic ranking files?
That's a great question. And as we unpack data, we could get to that answer. All right, let's try one more before I turn you loose for your gallery walk. This is also EL data, but you'll notice that we've changed the way it's being represented. So this is by ward now. So these are our students who are making progress regardless of which of those classifications they were in, pre-emergent, emergent, basic, or intermediate. As you take a look at the total population, how students are progressing. Oh, I'm sorry, this is just the intermediate by ward, I apologize. So what do you notice, what do you wonder, and what question do you have? Again, a notice is just the facts. Board Member Cross.
If I'm not mistaken, does Central take in most of our students that are in from other countries?
Is that a question you're asking if Central High School?
Are you an overachiever?
To answer your question, our language learning students are spread across the district. We have quite a large population at Alhambra, Camelback, and Central High Schools.
Okay, I thought Central had a specific area for refugees.
Yes, and because they're the language magnet, some students choose to come there who may or may not be refugees, but that's part of their language learning population. Board Member Meyer.
I have a question for clarification. Can you explain, I know, just for clarification of interpreting the data, can you explain why it's out of 80% again? I don't know if I missed that detail. So if like, I thought the benchmark, is the benchmark 70% to be able to transfer?
So just again, a reminder that students, in order to be reclassified or move from one category to the next, have to demonstrate a specific level of proficiencies determined by the state in reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So what you're seeing on the screen is for those intermediate students, which is the highest level, social proficiency, and then they're still developing their academic language, who are making progress in that area.
Oh, yes, but I mean, from the percentages, 0% to 80%. Is 80% the benchmark in order to change to?
Yeah, it's just the numbers that we fit on the graph. We could have taken it all the way up to 100%, but because most of them were, the highest was in the 70s, that's why we kept it at the 80%.
And President Pastor, Member Meyer, so this is just sort of by ward, a bunch of individual kids put together into categories, like who's making progress, who's not. The determination for making progress, though, is individual, like where you started and where you ended. And if you made that, then you got put into this bucket. So the 64, we're not trying to reach, well, we want it to go up, right? Because the more kids that are making progress, but there is no real benchmark per se, unless I guess 100% kids make progress. That would be phenomenal. But it's not necessarily a benchmark with the state per se. It's just a grouping of individual kids. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Andrade. I think it's important when we're looking at our language learning population that we also recognize that language proficiency sometimes takes years, especially if you're starting with very little command of the language or even formal education in your native language and country. Board Member Oliver, did you have something you wanted to add?
Well, I was going to follow the rules because I follow rules. I don't go straight to questions. No, I'm just joking. What I noticed was the intermediate by ward. Ward 3 is, leading the pack of, the different wards. And then I wonder what is making that happen and why is Ward 3 moving their people along. And the question I have, y'all notice what I'm doing? All right. The question I have is, how can we determine or get learnings from whatever Ward 3 is doing to help their students be more proficient? And can we use those methods to help the other wards, specifically Ward 2, because it's at the bottom and that makes me sad.
Nicely done. Thank you. All right, before we begin our gallery walk, just want to talk through some directions to make this a little bit easier. We are asking that you spread out around the room. We are asking that we'll have some pairing up. So President Pastor Rivera, we're going to ask that you be paired with Member Apodaca Flores. And then Representative Marquez, since we don't have a representative here from Ward 4, we're going to ask that you act as Ward 4 representative at this point in time. We're going to have you rotate between stations. We are going to put a timer up just to help keep things moving. We're going to give you about 5 minutes at each station. Mr. Guillermo del Rey, you might remember his name as we celebrated him at a previous board meeting. He is the master of all things CCRI data related and has really created a benchmark for the state in taking a very complicated set of data and making it something that's easy for us to understand. I will be your hostess over here at stations B and C for the ACT data, and Dr. Samantha Mada, who helped us create all of this for you today. She will be directly in front of us and behind Board Member Oliver and Board Member Apodaca Flores talking through our English language learning. And then Ms. Andrade will be talking through some of the systems pieces. They're up on the windows here behind me here in just a minute. Now, as you get ready to move, you do have some packets that are up on the dais in front of you, so I do want to take a moment just to review what's in there. I'm going to ask that you take those sticky notes with you because you're going to be writing on them a notice, a wonder, a question, and you're going to leave them up near the area so that we have that to better help us determine data points or a way to represent the data that makes a lot of sense. So in your packets, let's take a look at the information. So the first thing that you'll notice in there is by stations and by ward what you're going to be seeing. You will notice that your ward is color-coded. So all of the district data for Phoenix Union is in the color gray. So I'm going to give you just a minute to explore which color represents your ward. And again, thank you, Representative Marquez, for taking Ward 4 for us. Following that, you will see by ward, and again, it's color-coded, information related to ACT, the NWEA, which you might remember was one of our interim goals for measuring progress, and then credit currency for the entire school. So as we take a look at freshmen through our up-and-coming seniors, what is that credit currency for our students? That matters because if they're on track, they'll graduate on time. Following that, you'll see information related to ACT. We represented the data in 2 ways. So outright proficiency, remember, we're looking to move the needle in the number of students. But we also included scores because sometimes that makes a little bit more sense. Then you'll begin to see the systems handouts. So things related to data for graduation, dropout rates, our freshmen on track. Ms. Andrade talked about the importance of our freshman houses, our diploma seals, our FAFSA completion, dual enrollment, and then for our CTE district and campus. Now, I do recognize that we speak sometimes in a lot of education-ese, and so we also gave you a glossary just in case you're seeing something up there and you're like, what does that mean again? We tried to include that for you, and of course, those of us that are up and facilitating the different areas and there to support you any way we can. So we're asking that you write your initials on those sticky notes. We're asking for a notice, a wonder, and a question. If you have time before the timer goes off, we're going to ask that you either look at the district data or if you want to explore another ward's data, you are able to do so. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and transition you. We're going to ask that you spread out around the room so we can have somebody over here at this table, and Guillermo will get out of your way so you can get set up to look at the CCRI data. We've got the ACT data. You can start with either reading or with math, the EL over here, and then the system. So I'm going to give you some time to get up and move around, and then Jorge, I'm going to ask once everybody gets settled that you start the first 5-minute timer. Thanks, everyone. Grab your packets and your sticky notes. Okay, your time at your first station is almost up, so we're going to prompt you to finish writing on your sticky notes. Wrap up those final questions and thoughts, and you're going to need to move to a new station. It might be easiest if you move to your right so that we can kind of keep a flow in the room. Okay, it's time. Go ahead and move to your next station. Okay, I'm going to prompt you to wrap up your thoughts and move to the next station. Again, you're moving to your right. You need to be taking steps towards your next rotation. Jorge, can you go ahead and set that timer? Lots of good conversations going on, and that was the timer. So we're going to ask that you move to a new area. Or if you've had the opportunity to see all areas, you might want to go back to one. I know the systems piece had a lot of data. Hey, members, this should be your last rotation, I believe. So got about 4 minutes left. Okay, board members, that should be your final rotation and station at this point. So we're going to ask that you finalize your sticky notes and thoughts, get those put up somewhere around the posters, and return to the dais. President, are we ready to move forward, or you want to take just a couple of? Okay. Yeah, for sure. So most of you are back at the dais at this point, so I want to begin to give you some ideas about things that you can process in terms of questions. So I've got some question stems up on the screen that you can consider while others are finishing up on the data.
I'd just like to say, it looks like we've met, and I'm going to give CC, is it CCSI, CCRI?
CCRI?
I'm giving us a goal met as far as I'm concerned on that one. But it looks like we met 3 of the 4, and the 4th one we're very close to. So I understand why you're so excited.
Thank you, Member Cross, for that. Yes, we are very excited. The data is really moving in the right direction, and in many respects, we had some great gains. Okay, so again, thank you for your time and appreciate the conversations. We want to give you an opportunity to process and share a little bit with each other as we wrap this up. So we have some things we're hoping you're going to find a little bit of fun as we wrap up. So if you're thinking about your ward's data, what would be your headline?
Well,
Is your
Your Royal Highness, Signa Oliver, your ward is leading in ACT reading and ACT math, so congratulations on that endeavor as well. So definitely a huge jump and improvement for the wards, but particularly Ward 2 when we look at ACT reading and math.
Thank you for that. Other headlines from your wards just based on data?
Same thing for graduation rates, Ward 1 and Ward 2, leading the charge.
Thank you. As you think about wonders, what are some wonders you think are worth chasing? Things you're curious about or things that you think we need to ask the why or get at the root?
Well, I wonder if the change of demographics, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead.
President Pastor
Go ahead,
Rivera,
go
may I
ahead.
speak?
You're leading, so
Your
go
Royal
ahead.
Highnessness. All right, so I wonder throughout the city, because of the change of demographics in different wards in different areas, does that have anything to do with the data that we're seeing, a lot of data, but yeah.
Great question. President Pastor Rivera?
My other wonder, when we go back to the ACT reading, ACT math, and same thing for graduations and dropout rates, my wonder is the impacts of our specialty schools, right? Wilson, Bioscience, Coding, Linda Abreu, Bostrom, Phoenix Digital, et cetera, et cetera. So the impacts our specialty schools are definitely having. Is this moment I can also ask the questions as well?
Sure.
And then the other thing I think worth exploring is also perhaps the level of preparedness from our partner districts. I know that with Ward 2, we have Roosevelt, Levine, Phoenix Elementary. Ward 1, same thing, Roosevelt, Levine. Ward 4, it's a whole mix of Phoenix Elementary, Alhambra, Osborne. Ward 5, Cartwright, Isaac, et cetera, et cetera. So perhaps looking into, the level of preparedness from our partner districts as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. That articulation matters with our partner districts, agreed. Any other questions, things that would help us monitor the data better?
President Pastor Rivera.
Representative Marquez?
Yeah, I think at the different stations, I know most of the data was broken down by which school that the students go to within each ward. I think it would be helpful to see the charts presented also by which address, the home address of the students, so we can sort of look at, are students attracted to certain schools in a certain ward that have a program and that attracts higher performing students to certain campuses, or do certain wards, have the majority of our support schools, and that sort of skews the data because there's students from all over the district going to one of our alternative programs. So I think breaking the data down that way could be helpful.
Great question, especially in an open enrollment era. Thank you for that. So just a reminder that we will be revisiting this data in the fall some more, and we're hopeful that based on the review, you've got some talking points that you're able to share with your constituents out there. And just again, a huge shout out just to the number of folks that have been deeply involved in this data, from our campus teachers and collaborative teams to our principals. I had a chance to share with Member Cross just the growth that we've seen in our principals, going from very general goals related to achievement to much more specific goals, because they are data informed at this point and they know exactly what areas that they need to focus in on. We appreciate all of your time and your reflection, and with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Superintendent Andrade.
Thank you, Chief Tejas. I appreciate that. I do want to make a comment. I noticed as I was walking around that oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes Ward 4 kind of came up a little short. And to Member Marquez's point, as well as others, I think it's probably the most complex ward we have, if you think about it. Some of these wards are really clean, and some are mixed with a little bit of specialty school, but Ward 4 kind of has it all. It's got 3 comprehensive, it's got Central, not Central, I'm sorry, Alhambra, it's got Metro, and it's got Carl Hayden. It's got Franklin, but then it's got Linda Abreu and Bostrom. So it's just this kind of perfect storm of all kinds of schools and all kinds of students and all different ages, and from really all across the wards. If you think about Metro, kids are getting on from Trevor to go to Metro Tech. Kids are getting on from all over to go to Metro Tech. Same with Abreu and Bostrom. They travel from their home school to go there. So in addition to that, we're dealing with Isaac, we're dealing with Alhambra, and other partner districts. So I think there's a lot of complexity. It's not as cut and dry as maybe a Ward 1 that really primarily comes from Levine and maybe a little bit from Roosevelt, which I think you can get at the heart of a little bit easier when you're thinking about improvement. So again, I want to thank the team that made this possible, and just remind the board that when you set out for one-year goals, we had already, I said bring them, because we had already started the work in my interim year, and we continued to just move forward with a tight focus. We didn't change directions, we just stayed the course. A lot of background noise in between though, and a lot of unintended things happened, and one of which was declining enrollment, budget cuts, a lot of noise. Again, kept the principals with their head down, focus on achievement. That's what we're here for. Safe schools so students can learn. And I commend our campuses and the people that do the work every single day. They show up for kids, and they show up in the right ways, because it's showing in our data, from graduation rate to post-secondary to CTE completion, which I had to brag about, even though, our board goals are over here. Without some of this strong foundation, everything kind of starts to come together. It is no coincidence. If it was just one area, you might say, well, Phoenix Union had a lucky year. There's no way all this data increased just like that from 1 year or 3 years. So hats off to the team, hats off to the teachers. Thank you.
Board Member Cross?
Yeah, I had asked you this question also, because I can remember at one of our retreats, I thought we set our math goal too low, and that was the one that we didn't meet. And our interim goals had said we were meeting those goals. So I was kind of wondering what happened. Thank you, President Pastor Rivera. Just out of curiosity, because we're relying on those interim goals to kind of give us an idea of that we're going to be meeting our goals. And that was just the one that I was questioning. That was the only one.
Yeah, thank you for that. We did too, and so we've been unpacking that quite a bit with the team. Testing conditions matter, right? So what are they experiencing in the NWEA space that maybe they're not in the ACT or vice versa? I think I had shared this with one group. Our math teams who are working on curriculum this summer saw that data, and they've made some changes to how they're doing unit assessments. So some of the problems that the students are expected to do in that space very closely mirror what they'll be seeing on the ACT as a way to continue to bridge that gap.
And I think the last thing I'll say is that part of the reason we put up all of this data is because as much as the board goals are what the state looks at, it's how they judge us, it's how the community does, and I understand the need for ACT, but I will always tell you the ACT is a standardized test at one point in time, and it is not the whole kid. It's just not. And so there's a story behind every one of our students, and just as I am, eager to be proficient in another language, I see the battle that English is probably the craziest language to acquire of all of them, right? And so I see these kids with beautiful perseverance. I see our CTE kids with beautiful, like welding at 20 out of 20 passed the technical skills. Our engineering kids that are passing. Beautiful things are happening, and I can't guarantee you that all those kids are exactly the ones that are proficient on ACT. So it's just a reminder, we're setting off adults into our community that we hope are contributing citizens and lifelong learners. And Lord knows, one test, I think we can all look back on our own past. We would never want to be judged by one test that is somewhat biased and timed and very stressful and one point in time. So let's try to keep the whole picture in mind when we think of that. Thank you.
I'd like to give a little story to that.
Board Member Cross, yeah, go ahead.
Board Presidents Rivera, Pastor Rivera, sorry. My father was in the Air Force, as some of you know, and his squadron was being inspected. The inspector generals came up, and there was 2 fighter squadrons on the base, the 71st, which my dad called the 71st, and the 91st, 4th. And so the 71st was doing great on the ground testing. The 94th was doing great in the air. And so the IG team decided that the 71st was the better one. And my father went up to this lovely 3-star general and said, if we go to war, which one of us do you want to be up there with you? So they had to change the whole way they looked at it, and testing started to go down, and they had to look at what the pilots were actually doing. And that's always a story I've loved because I hate testing.
Thank you, Board Member Cross. Are there any further points? Oh, Representative Marquez, my apologies.
Yeah, thanks, President Pastor Rivera. I think that as it relates to the ACT, I just wanted to say great job on the ACT reading. I think to see that jump and meet the goal was impressive, and I think it's important for the board and staff to really understand, what were the interventions that took place to help us meet that goal? Are there similar interventions or, that we can do on the ACT math? And I think I agree, with a lot of comments. I think the ACT test is biased, but it is the test that the state is using to sort of compare ourselves to other districts across the state. So I think we have to keep chipping away and find, what further interventions we can do on the math side of things to keep reaching our goals there.
Perfect. Any other points of comments? Any other questions? All right, we'll move forward. Thank you so very much. Next item is item 3A, request for future agenda items. This item will be skipped. Board members will have the opportunity to request future agenda items during the special meeting. So next item is item 3B, motion to adjourn this study session. Is there a motion to adjourn this study session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion to adjourn has been made by Board Member Oliver and seconded by Representative Marquez. On the motion, those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned. We'll now take a quick dinner break. Guests, just a quick reminder during breaks, as a safety protocol, please refrain from approaching the dais. Thank you for cooperation. And we will begin the hearings at, let's see, what time? What time should we do the hearings? Yeah.
I believe they're scheduled immediately following, so once you take your break, you can come right out and start right away. So it depends on how long of a break you'd like to take, President Pastor Rivera.
5:45, does that work for you guys? 30 minutes. 30 minutes? Perfect. 5:45, guys. All right. Good. 1, 2, 3. All right. The public hearings on the proposed budget and truth and taxation are called to order. Will the secretary please note that all board members are present? Ooh. Here we go. All right. Please note that today's hearings and special meeting are being live streamed. Additionally, Spanish interpreting services are available at the back of the room. Tech team, can we please get the translation?
Si necesita intérprete en español, favor de mirar a nuestro intérprete que se encuentra a un lado del cuarto. Gracias.
Item 2A, public hearings on the 2026-27 proposed budget and truth and taxation. Dr. Adrian Dialba, Chief Financial Officer, will provide a brief presentation. We will open the floor for public comment immediately after this presentation. Dr. Dialba.
Thank you. President Pastor Rivera, Clerk Meyer, Governing Board, Superintendent, and Phoenix Union Community. Today we're presenting the expenditure budget for the next fiscal year. It's pretty similar to the one you saw 2 weeks ago. Before discussing the budget, I will provide an overview of today's presentation. Today we'll share a brief update on the state budget, the budget timeline for Arizona school districts, important factors taken into consideration when building the district budget, and provide a general overview of the budget and share future directions. The state budget was approved and signed by the governor last week. The state budget includes the assumptions that we shared 2 weeks ago to build the district budget, including a 2% increase to the base level funding, a continuation of one-time additional funding for the district or additional assistance, which is DAA, and one-time funding for low-income students, which is coded as FLRP, totaling about $2.7 million, and still no resolution to Prop 123. State legislators are recommending various referendums to voters in November. 2 of these will have a significant impact on school district budgets and operations. The first referendum, known as the 60-40, essentially requires school districts to spend at least 60% of expenditures on classroom instruction, based on the annual Auditor General School District Spending Analysis. This will have a significant impact on the school district budget, as it is a very narrow definition of classroom instruction, meaning in-classroom instruction by certified classroom teachers. Based on the fiscal year 25 report, Phoenix Union, like other union high school districts, is currently at about 47% on classroom spending. And so that will cause us to shift significantly. The second referendum affecting the school district is related to the association union activity. If approved by voters, this would prohibit automatic payroll deduction for union dues. Currently, the district has the option for payroll deductions for union dues for all 3 associations. Again, that will impact the operations of the district. In a future study session, we'll review the school district spending analysis in more detail to provide you information on how that's calculated. This slide summarizes the budget timeline again. As I mentioned previously, the proposed budget, adopted budget is today, is the hearing. In October, we'll bring the annual financial report for all of you to review. Then in December, we bring budget revision 1, and then budget revision 2 in May. As I mentioned in the past, the budget is a dynamic document, and it's changing based on the number of students and enrollment that we have in the school. This slide provides a little historical context for the budget. Over the last 3 years, the district has been cutting budgets, primarily at the district office. Initially, budget reductions occurred at the district level by restructuring executive team, not hiring vacant positions that did not have a direct impact on students, and analyzing purchase services to reduce budgets. We have continued to analyze vacant positions and purchase services, and will be developing a comprehensive return on investment process to help with decision-making as we move forward. In this slide, I'll go over considerations when building the budget. Again, there's 3 main factors affecting fiscal year 27 budget, and this is 1, there's a continued enrollment decline. So when schools lose students, we know that we also lose revenue, and this has a significant impact on our budgets. Second, which I still have, sorry, I had not updated this before the budget had been approved. So now that's not really an uncertainty in a sense. What we do have are the 2 referendums that are going out, and then also Prop 123 really needs to be resolved in the sense that we're using general fund money to be able to pay for what we would normally get through state land trust. And so that in a sense is somewhat of an issue because the general fund can be cut when, based on negotiations for budget, rather than in the past, we had a voter approved measure that allowed the state to provide state land trust money to fund Prop 123. And so even though we're at 2.9% right now from state land trust, it used to be at 6.9. So the remainder, essentially, that gap is from the general fund, which can be, without a voter approved measure, it can be reduced as needed by the legislator. And then lastly, we have increased operational costs. I think we're all feeling this, but the district absorbed 11% of the healthcare costs, continuing to provide employee-only health plan at no cost to our employees. Transportation costs continue to rise, resulting from regular and diesel fuel increases. Utility costs are expected to increase with both SRP and APS increasing rates. And then overall district operations are expected to increase due to higher inflation rates. To help address the significant decline in enrollment, the school board established a budget committee to gather community feedback, set priorities, and plan for budget reductions. The school board adopted the budget committee priority recommendations, which were used to propose budget reductions. Because the majority of the budget is comprised of salaries and benefits, employees were affected by these reductions this year. As of the previous last week, 81% of those affected by the reductions in force have either been placed or retired. Thanks to the foresight of this school board, the budget reductions for this year will cover the revenue losses for this fiscal year and the projected losses for next fiscal year. Later in the presentation, I will provide a short overview of the findings for the budget engagement process that took place this year, and that's for planning for fiscal year 28, which is not next year, but the following year. So we're about a year and a half ahead of the game. Next, I'll turn it to Ms. Reese, who will provide an overview of the fiscal year 27 expenditure budget.
Thank you. The FY27 expenditure budget is based on the following assumptions. Average daily membership of 23,700 students, approximately 3,100 employees, 23 schools, an expected 2% inflation increase in per pupil base funding, slight decrease in the teacher experience index, which is additional funding based on our teaching experience, a slight decrease to state retirement contribution, and the normal 75-25 split for our district additional assistance, or otherwise known as our quarrel. Based on these assumptions, the district M&O expenditure budget is about $381 million, or $16,000 per student. The district's major investments include student-based outcomes encompassing classroom instruction, tutoring, and other direct student instructional services amounting to $181 million, or $7,600 per student. The second major investment is our future career readiness, which includes our CTE programming, academy models, IB, dual enrollment, and other career readiness programs. This amount also includes a one-time bond investment in CTE programming to start the pre-planning phase of the Advanced Technical Center. This investment is expected to increase enrollment in our comprehensive high schools by offering high-demand career and technical programming for our students. The third investment and commitment to our students and community is the multi-tiered safety and comprehensive student support system, which includes services for our students such as counseling, social workers, case management, community resources, and tiered safety support at the campus level. Example of the safety investments include safety assistant, the Centegic badges for all the employees, the V-Alert system. These costs also include one-time expenditures from the bond for fencing, cameras, and renovations to secure our front offices, including Fairfax, Camelback, and others throughout our district. Over the past 3 years, the district has lost about 2,400 students. When schools drop in enrollment, revenues drop. Comparing proposed budgets, the total budget has dropped about 11.3 million. Fewer students results in less funding for our schools. The slide provides a summary of the budgeted expenditures by different categories. Overall, about 180 million is budgeted for regular education and 53 million for special education. It's important to note that the special education in the finance world includes exceptional student services, vocational CTE programs, gifted and English language learners. These are broken down below in the special education line, but they're included as part of our total. Another major budgeted expenditure for the district is our student transportation. And currently, our one-time reserves, which were used to cover expenditures this year, are about 72 million.
As I mentioned in the past, we have three scenarios in terms of enrollment. One is a decline, one is a stable flattening, and the other one is enrollment increasing. This is just an estimated amount. It's not what the demographic study is projecting, but it's just showing if we lose 1,000 students, it's about 8.7 million. The idea is if we flatten our enrollment, right, there's no change really to the budget unless there's different shifts according to legislation. And then if we increase by about 150 students, it'll be a $1.2 million increase to the budget. Again, it's just demonstrating like pretty much we have three different directions that we can go when we're looking at the budget. Looking ahead, we expect the education market to become more competitive with fewer students and greater competition with other school systems to attract them. This year, we continued engaging the community on budget decisions that will need to be made for fiscal year 28, not next year, but the following. We hope to remain at least a year ahead of the reductions to make thoughtful strategic decisions today that uphold fiscal responsibility while supporting student success. In this slide is a summary of the findings and potential strategies for this year's budget engagement process. The three major areas include the need for continued feedback and meaningful budget engagement. Our community did like actually completing surveys and being able to be a part of focus groups to get to produce their feedback and get that information. Second is updating policies on reporting the budget and potentially developing a fund balance policy that's really to protect the district and make sure that we're long-term fiscally sustainable. And then lastly is reducing cost by increasing class sizes, optimizing our district staffing model. Again, students, parents, and teachers were able to kind of select from different scenarios where we said like, you know, would you prefer to do increase class size or, you know, get rid of this? Would you prefer to increase this cost or do that? And that was what came out mostly from students. Something also that came out from the focus group that I think is important is students actually did request or say they're noticed that there's some electives, for example, that are offered where the classes are smaller, while there's other electives that are completely full. So it's also looking at like what is it that students want to take and be able to offer those courseworks to be more strategic with our staffing model. So we hope that to share these findings and recommendations in the September board meeting. Now we will start the public hearing for the proposed budget. Are there any questions or comments from the public or the board related to the proposed expenditure budget?
Member Napa?
If the ballot measure to increase instruction spending on passes in November, what does that look like for our classrooms moving? Is that an increase in teacher pay? Is that an increase in resources that are actually in the classroom for resources? What does that look like?
So there's multiple options. We would obviously have to collaborate to figure out exactly how it looks, but it is shifting our expenditures more into classroom teachers. That could be either by increasing pay, it could be increasing the number of certified teachers. But of course, if we increase in one area, it means we have to decrease in other areas. The state right now utilizes essentially a coding system Let's say I'm a teacher in a classroom and I'm a certified teacher. I'm coded under one specific function, and that's really what's utilized to kind of come up with this is the percentage where you're at. Interestingly enough, in support services, would be anything outside of the classroom, but that also includes counselors, social workers, nurses, and different groups. And so again, based on, when we're looking at the budget, if we add in one area, it's because we're reducing in another area. And so I know I didn't answer your question directly, but it would be in more pay or more teachers, investing more, shifting the budget from another category to that direct instruction.
So it wouldn't necessarily be materials or anything like that? It would be actual instruction, people teaching in the classroom?
It's classroom teachers.
Okay.
Yes.
And can we go to the slide where it says overview fiscal year and with all the bullet points? There we go, yeah.
Yeah.
That one. Just for my information, just because I'm curious, the last time I asked this question, I think we were spending about $8,400 per student in an academic year. I see these key investments, student-based outcomes, $7,600, future career readiness, about $4,200 per student, and tiered safety support systems, $33,600. If we add all those up, that's way more than the $8,000. Where are these? Where's this other money coming from? And is that, because I saw $16,000 per student, where is that money coming from? Is it coming, it's obviously not coming from the state at $16,000.
Well, it is, that's a great question, thank you. That $381 million is actually our M&O budget. So that's strict, this is M&O budget. Remember, our budget also includes dropout prevention, desegregation, our override funding. And so that's kind of all factored into that total. When we look at student-based outcomes, that's also more or less the 8,000 that you were talking about. But when we're looking at future readiness, that is including bond funds, it's including Perkins, it's encompassing all the funds. One of the things that we're trying to do to be able to give you a more, an easier picture of our budget is to categorize with a little bit more specificity. But right now, we really, to pull that number, it was like we looked at a lot of different funding sources, which include federal grants, like Perkins. It includes bond money, which is for capital, and it also includes override funds. And so that's why that number is larger, and if you add them up, it's not gonna add up to the 16,000 because that first one is just M&O. The same with the tiered safety and support systems. That's including all the different budgets. It's including different budgets, and it also includes, for both those two bottom ones, includes one-time funding, for example, for systems improvements. If we're renovating a space, it includes that.
So what I'm hearing is that because this district has gone out and done the work for the bond and the override and also sought out extra funds outside of the state legislature, we're able to provide these extra systems and these extra supports for our students because the state legislature did not fully fund us.
Our voters support
Our voters
the
are
measure.
awesome.
Our voters support the additional measures through that are mechanisms developed by the legislator to ask or request for additional funding beyond our state equalization. So yes, because of our voters' support, we're able to provide these additional funding mechanisms.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any further questions from my colleagues on the board? Superintendent?
I do want to talk a little bit about the impact to the budget based on what's going to the ballot. Not only is that 60-40 going to be a challenge for just about every district I've spoke to. Yes, it pays teachers more, and that's what we want, but not at the cost of a wraparound service that we know students need. We could simply go to the state land trust, and there's other ways. Another thing on the ballot that may threaten our enrollment, which right now, as of Q4, I looked at our ESA vouchers, and it's about 1,200 kids from the Phoenix Union boundaries accessing those vouchers. Again, that is a little bit of a threat. The space issue, as enrollment declines, when there's space, we have to be very strategic about that because, again, I'll use the example. It may sound like a great idea to close a small area or a small school that doesn't have enrollment, but at the same time, what if a charter school comes along and rents that space, and that's right next to a comprehensive school? So there's just a lot of legislation that you have to think about in the back of your mind, because 60/40 is certainly a way to pay teachers more, but at the cost of them doing it alone. No more instructional aides, no more safety to take the student out of the classroom. There could be a lot at stake for the full school community. And so again, between the ESAs, the vouchers, and the space that's already passed in previous sessions, I think that's just all stuff we need to be very cognizant of moving forward. Both ESAs will be on the ballot, so I think the union is probably the least of our worries, the teachers' union. Thank you.
Any further points, comments, questions? All right, just wanted to make sure one more time, any requests online or in person? All right. This leads us to the next item. Thank you very much. This leads us to the next item of 3A. Excuse me. Oh, go ahead, Dr. Diablo. Yeah, go ahead. My apologies. The script's right here.
President Pastor Rivera, Clerk Meyer, Governing Board, Superintendent, and Phoenix Union Community. ARS 15-904.01B requires that each fiscal year in which a school district governing board levies an amount for adjacent ways, a public hearing must be held. Adjacent ways funds are restricted for use for typical land improvements in the right-of-way areas adjacent to a school site. For example, adjacent ways projects include repairs to a sidewalk leading to the school or improving a fire lane that provides emergency access to the school. In this presentation, we'll provide a brief overview of the revenue and tax rate trends for the school district. The district receives revenue from several sources funded through taxpayers and state legislature. The majority of the revenue comes from property taxes and state equalization. Other sources of revenue include our overrides, which is a mechanism developed by the state legislature for districts to receive additional funding beyond the state allocation, if approved by voters. Unique to Phoenix Union, the district also receives about $55 million of desegregation funding and $2.4 million for dropout prevention. I want to thank our taxpayers and community for their continued support of the district and approval of the last override election last year. Approval of the override allowed the district to receive about $30 million in M&O funding and $21 million in capital funding, all used for instructional purposes. So there's two tax rates. If you look at your tax bill and you live in the city of Phoenix or in our district, there's two tax rates. There's a primary tax rate and then there's a secondary tax rate. That primary tax rate, if you look at the lines, it'll say Phoenix Union, and that Phoenix Union line consists of the qualifying tax rate. That qualifying tax rate is set by the state legislature every year, and it's at $1.51. Now, this is based on the assessed value of your house. It's not that you're paying $1.50. It just it depends on the value of your house based on the county assessor and what they determine each year. In addition to that, we have the adjacent waste tax, which we usually levy for about $3.5 million, which includes projects right now that we're doing, for example, at MetroTech to bring for the drives that come in and out. We've done some work with fire lanes and parking lots at Carl Hayden in different schools, and so that's what that $3.5 million, that's about a 5-cent tax. Dropout prevention funds Bostrom and different programming throughout the district, targeting dropout prevention of students. That's about a 3-cent. Then transportation, obviously funds our buses and transportation. We're at the highest limit for our district. And then that other 2% is essentially, they're called giblets, and they're essentially temporary tax breaks to encourage development to come into the city. So the city and the county kind of work this out, but that's a 2-cent tax that's assessed to make up for that difference or to provide that. So the primary tax rate is about $1.64. When we look at the secondary tax rate, this is really where the voter initiatives come in. So the district, right, asks the voters, hey, we'd like to go above the limit using an override or a bond. And so your tax rate for the bond is about $1.09. And again, the bond funds all the capital, all the renovations that you see throughout the district, a lot of the technology that we purchase, the parking lot, all those things are funded through the bond. It's important to recognize that while we have a large bond amount, it's about $475 million, that's for a period of about 5 years that we go every 5 years to the voters. But also, we have a lot of old buildings. And I'll use Metro Tech as an example. It seems like every time we do something at Metro Tech, we uncover an issue that is additional money that we have to remediate for the safety of our students to make sure that everything is in working order. And so although it seems like a large amount for bond money, it really isn't considering the age of our buildings. The next one is 41 cents, about 41 cents for the M&O override. And that is to fund additional teachers and to be able to fund different supplies and different programming that educational programming that we have in the district. It also funds some of our athletic costs that we use. And again, that we go out to voters, they vote, and then they approve that. Next is the capital override. We asked for the maximum this last year, which is about $21 million. Again, it was approved. That's a 29-cent tax. And again, that funds, sometimes those small construction projects, if it's like one bathroom or different things that we need to fix. It also funds instructional materials such as books, library subscriptions, a lot of different resources that students use in the classroom are funded through the override. And then lastly, we have our desegregation funding, which is a court-ordered funding mechanism for the district, which is at 76 cents, and that funds our CTE magnet programs. It basically funds the majority of Fairfax, North, and portions of South. And so it's important to understand that all these funding mechanisms together allow us to provide the diverse programming available to our students. The secondary tax rate is about $2.56. When we're looking at both of them combined, the estimated tax rate will be about $4.20 for the district. It has been decreasing, right, as our assessed value increases. So as we have more houses, the assessed value of the entire district goes up. We're asking for a little bit less money because our enrollment is declining, so the tax rate goes down. Keep in mind, if the assessed values of the houses start going down, right? So if we have less houses, or if we have the same amount of houses and the values go down, it actually kind of has the opposite effect, because now we're collecting less money, but we need the same amount of money, so our tax rate would go up. Again, it has been steadily going down. We want to keep it as constant as possible. That's just the best practice. Really, we have no authority over that in a sense. It's just we go out for voter measures like the overrides, and then the QTR, which is the qualified tax rate, that's determined by the legislator each year based on the different needs that schools have. And so while we do have an impact, for example, on how much we ask for adjacent ways, we really don't have that much control over the tax rate. Now we'll start the public hearing for the truth in taxation notification. Are there any questions or comments from the public or board regarding the 2627 truth in taxation notification?
Nothing from the public, my colleagues? Perfect.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so very much. All right, next item is 3A, adjournment of the public hearings. Is there a motion to adjourn the public hearings?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion to adjourn has been made by Representative Marquez and seconded by Board Member Oliver. On the motion, those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. All right. Here we go. The special meeting is called to order. Will the secretary please note that all board members are present? The first item on the agenda is 1C, Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. We will stand as Representative Marquez leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing while a moment of silence is observed. Thank you, everybody, and please be seated. The next item on the agenda is 1D, land acknowledgement statement. Please remain seated as Member Napa reads the PXU land acknowledgement statement.
The Phoenix Union High School District is responsible for and committed to creating educational environments that prioritize the achievements of Native American students. We are committed to making their cultural identity visible by acknowledging that our school district resides upon the ancestral lands of the original caretakers, the Hohokam ancestors of the Akamil Atam, Ankh Atamil Atam, Tana Atam, and Akchin. These sovereign nations are presently known as Gila River Indian Community, Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community, Tana Atam Nation, and Akchin Indian Community. This formal acknowledgement is dedicated to the 22 sovereign nations of Arizona. PXU understands the importance of providing reparations through truth-telling. We recognize the historical injustices not traditionally taught in the classroom and are committed to practices prioritizing Native American knowledge, history, representation, and healing. We commit with an open mind to always respect the land, its histories, and its ancestors.
Perfect. Thank you so very much. The next item on the agenda is 2A, call to the public. Do we have call to the public? Perfect. All right, so there is no call to the public, so we'll continue moving forward. The next item is 3A, approval of consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented has been made by Board Member Oliver and seconded by Representative Marquez. Is there any discussion? On the motion, those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, the next item is 4A, the 2026-2027 performance-based plan between Phoenix Union High School District number 210 and Thea L. Andrade with potential action. So board, following up our evaluation process, it's now time for the PBP, as we call it. I do want to note of several things as we get started. First things first, we need to adopt a performance-based plan by June 30th, right? So we need to really get the conversation going now, make sure it passes today. I'm sure if we don't want to do it today, we have to schedule a special meeting, but none of us want that. So let's definitely be disciplined and continuously see in which ways we can pass this forward. I also want to note the superintendent's contract required, well, I just said that, our current 2025-26 plan already aligns with the board's adopted goals. That's a very important aspect as well. The current plan is straightforward and working well. This plan ties in the superintendent performance measures to our board goals. We can make adjustments later if needed. If the board wants to revise the plan after adoption, we can do so with the superintendent's agreement. And lastly, I know that this was a point of conversation in our previous meetings. The PBP is far different than the evaluation, all right? So, unlike this play plan, the evaluation tool does not have to pass or meet the June 30th deadline. That's a continuous thing that we can discuss. Now, we also discuss updating our evaluation plan to match it with our board adopted goals. I also like to point out that I have reached out to our coach, Cinto Ramos, and he's going to work with us and to update our evaluation plan to meet our board adopted goals. So those are just a few things I just want to clarify as we move forward with that. As we can see, actually, do we have the board adopted goals in the presentation? Perfect. As we talked about during the study session, as each of you guys saw, the district has been doing quite well in reaching the goals. There are obviously some areas of improvement, but needless to say, we're reaching the goals and we're doing well. We know areas that we need to improve on, strengthen perhaps our relationship with our different feeder districts, different areas in which we can strengthen, whether it be ACT reading, ACT math. We know the breakdown of each of the wards. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and move forward as well. As we know, the PXU Governing Board 3-year goal 1, by August of 2029. Oh wait, first, let me actually clarify as well with this PBB plan. My apologies. As we discussed in the last meeting as well, the 15%, right? That is evenly distributed of how the superintendent has met her goals. So if she's exceeding, correct my math if I'm wrong, team, as well. It'd be 3.87 something percent, correct? If evenly distributed. If you're exceeding, if you're meeting, it would be 1 point.
Correct, it's the 4 goals. I think initially we thought about having 5. It would have done math a little bit easier, but we have 4 goals, so it's 15, 4 divided into 15, so it's a little bit more than 3% per goal. Not quite 4, though.
Perfect. So again, let's go down to the goal 1. By August of 29, Phoenix Union to increase the percentage of students demonstrating growth of 10 or more points based on college and career readiness indicators from 92 for the class of 2026 to 95 for the class of 29. As we can see here, we have seen the 1% increase of our overall growth for CCRI. Any questions, comments regarding that? Perfect.
I do have a question.
Representative Marquez, yes.
Yeah. I think for this next school year, we should be fine since we're going to start doing the evaluation in December's. But I know at the top of this, in the second paragraph, it says, any earned performance compensation shall be paid within 60 days following the board's determination of goal attainment. When I was at the CCIR station earlier, I know there's still some data that's outstanding. We don't have all of the data. So I guess, do we need to, for this current school year, come back and check in when we have all the data, or how are we making that determination?
Superintendent.
Typically, President Pastora, Member Marquez, once the data has come in and it's been validated, I don't have anything to do with it, but I know our team does, and they verify it. And then they start a process to issue the payment, and then it eventually is public. It will happen, usually it happens later, even after the data is, once we wait till all the data is in. And so CCRI might not be public facing until September, maybe? And that's fine, because typically it's not paid out that early for any superintendents.
Thank you. And President Pastor Rivera, it might help as we go through each of these goals, since they're the same as last year, I believe, to kind of go through and say, you know, where are we at today in terms of the, you know, retrospectively this past fiscal year.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up, Representative Marquez. I would like to note, though, the goals actually are not the same as last year.
So if I could just interject, the goals that were recently adopted that we'll be entering into this school year for are 3-year goals, and then we have the increments of each year that we hope to make. So if we're trying to get, for example, from 92% to 95% for CCRI, the way we have 1%, 1%, 1%. For some of the other goals, it's going to, because of the stretch and where we are as the baseline, we've got maybe a 2%, 2%, 2%. So we have evenly divided it over the 3 years. And I think that the PBP can be done in 1-year increments. I think it's still important to look, just like we did with it's gone now, but with the CTE over a 3-year trend, and that's the whole point of a 3-year goal. It's usually a 3-year superintendent contract. You're looking at the course of, hey, maybe you had a hiccup year, but then you made up for it the next year. So I think both are valuable, but for the sake of this, we've broken up each of the goals, divided equally into 1-year chunks, so to speak, to get to the big 3-year. Does that?
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking, and I know the interim goals that we used for last year's performance-based pay were not the same but similar for this last school year. And so it might be helpful to sort of go through what we voted on last year and say, okay, now it's the middle of June, you know, where's the superintendent at, so the public can see, you know, did you get the full 15% or did you end up at 12% because we met our reading goal on ACT, but we didn't meet the math goal on ACT. So where did that put you for this year, so that the public can see, you know, how this actually works?
Okay, so at this point, though, based on last year's goals, I believe we met the reading goal. We surpassed it,
Yep.
right? Just incredible progress there. We did not meet the math goal, but we made progress because we went up almost 1%. And I think progress is a small portion in the original PBP. If I look correctly, if the goal is achieved, it's 3.7. And if there's just progress, it's only 1.8. And if it's backwards or the same, it's 0. So I would say, number one, for reading, yes. For math, progress. For CCRI, we just don't know yet. And for EL, we did. So we made 2. We made progress on 1. And the 4th and final one is unknown at this time.
Hang on one more. Board member Cross,
Oh,
excuse me.
good, you forgot my name, I love it. President Rivera, we did mention that the CC, we were still getting things in, and if I remember right, we were 0.8 from meeting our goal, 0.8 from meeting the goal on the CC. All right, so to me, from what I'm understanding is we met goals on 2, and the third one's the career and college one. Basically, we're there. I mean, we're 0.8 from it, and we haven't got the final information on it yet.
President Pastor Rivera, Member Cross, we really, that's our own calculation. We will wait to get AP and IB tests back. That seems to help a little, but I've worked with principals on their individual CCRI, and moving it even 1% is a heavy lift. It's just seniors. So again, close is great in horseshoes, but that we're not gonna cash anything in. We may come in exactly the same, which is 0. We'd have to surpass it to have progress, and then actually meet the goal above and beyond that to actually meet it. So with AP and IB pending, it's possible, but it's also maybe not likely as well, being as close as we are. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. So I don't count the eggs before they're hatched, and that is fine. I'm proud of us for coming just as close, again, as a district. So it's not about anything other than we're right around the number we want to be at, but we want to push more seniors. So we'll have to just wait and see on that one. Thank you.
Representative Marquez.
Yeah, I think this is helpful, and I know state law requires us to adopt the goal before June 30th for the next school year. I think maybe at the October or November meeting, it would be helpful once we have all of the data to say, hey, we met 3 out of the 4 goals and we made progress on one of the goals, so that the public can see, out of the 15% the superintendent was eligible for, the superintendent ended up at 12% out of that 15% or whatever the calculation is. And I think that's a good practice going forward for the public to see where we landed on the superintendent's performance-based pay.
Perfect. Thank you, Representative Marquez. Any further comments or questions? Perfect. So again, as we saw with the ACT reading, we're meeting that goal, as the superintendent mentioned, with the ACT math approaching CCRI. So the jury's out there. And then again, with the English language learners, we have met our goal. Having said that, again, I just want to repeat the PBP plan is different than that of the evaluation tool. Our evaluation tool, we will are in the process of tinkering so it's aligned with our goals. The PBP plan, we can adopt if we feel it meets this. And again, we have the deadline of June 30th, and we can always make the adjustments if needed with the superintendent. Absolutely.
Okay, so President Pastor Rivera, members, as it stands now, if we were to go with the 1-year increments for next year alone, On the CCRI, we'd be going from 92% to 93%. That's the first proposed. Remember, we're trying to get to 95 in the long run. The next one is reading. We're now at 27.6. We did not expect that. And we're asking to jump to 29.1. So just under about 2%. That's an increase of 1.5% in reading. We'll see if we get there after such a large jump, but we're gonna certainly try. In math, you might remember we went from like 13.8 to like 14.1 or something. It wasn't a huge jump, but it was a jump. It was a movement anyway. We're proposing that we go from 14%, where we are currently, to 16%. Because we've got some catching up to do. Unlike reading, that really took a big jump, math didn't really move as much, so we got to push that one a little bit more. So that's 2% a year. We have moving, so 14 to 16% in math. And then the last one is for the EL reclassification from 28%, where we are currently, to 30%. So that would be a 2% jump there as well. So to recap, it would be a 1% on CCRI, about a 1.5% on ACT reading, 2% improvement in 1 year on ACT math, and a 2% improvement on EL reclassification, all in 1 year.
Representative Marquez.
Yeah, is there, I might be looking at the wrong document, because when I look at ACT math in the document, in board documents, it says from 16% in August of 2026 to 17% in August of 2027, a 1% increase. Is that what we're basing this off of?
So we had projected to get to 16% originally. We didn't make it. We only made it to 14. So we have to reset from 14 now to 16.
Okay.
These were written at a time when we didn't have the results in, so we just went based on our goals.
Okay.
So we would have to adjust these, because you are correct. Just like if you look at the reading above that, you'll see that it was like from 25% to 26%. Well, guess what? We came out of the gate with our reading results at 27.6. So again, we had to adjust reading because we surpassed 25%. And to get to 26%, we're already past that as well. So with the real data, once the real data came in, we made adjustments on that. So I hope that helps
Do we
explain.
need to amend this document to?
We would. This was a sample for us to work on, I think. And then again, under a motion, I think President Pastor, if the board so chooses, can read the goals as they're written for 1 year only, or make modifications to them. Thank you.
Representative Marquez.
No, yeah, I think we need the motion to state the percentage increase for each goal, regardless of where we currently stand at. Since it's not, as presented, it's not written down what the actual motion would be. Is that accurate, General Counsel?
That's correct. So what you could do is say to adopt the goals as presented with the change that is being indicated. So it would be the change from 14 to 16, is that correct, Superintendent? Yeah.
Okay, and then before that motion, my one question on the EL goal is, do we have the right goal? Because I know the cut score changed in terms of how we're calculating the goal. So is the goal aggressive enough, or does that need to be reconsidered?
Thank you for that question, President Pastor, Member Marquez. That is an unknown swirling around, and I see our English language experts in the room agreeing. They're probably going to change the test. That's the one thing you can get used to in education. It's just when we get used to it, they change it. So it is an unknown. I'm not going to lie. But there are so many unknowns in the EL world, aren't they? What kids are going to show up in your classroom, what their background is, what their language acquisition is, how motivated they are, how many friends they have. There's so many factors. So at the end of the day, we have said through guardrails and through goals that like ELs matter. And so the more we know, the more we can adjust. But I'm willing to say in a year, it'll maybe be the same test. And I think we need to keep pushing from 28 to 30. At that point, though, because the PBP is annual, we should probably revisit it, look at what the state test is, talk to our teachers. Is this the right goal? Is this the right focus? I think we started this goal looking at progress, and then we changed it to reclassification. Like, are they proficient or not? Can they join mainstream or not? And so I think this board has shown that they can be nimble and adjust based on call to the public, based on the data we know. So we're just going to have to wait and see what the new state test is, but that brings a good point. Currently, it's 2%.
Any further questions, comments, concerns? Okay. So with that being said, is there a motion to approve the 26-27 performance-based plan with change being indicated of 14 to 16%? Okay. So with the change being indicated then?
Yeah, I think you should read them.
Perfect. All right. Okay, with the change being indicated of CCRI being 1%, reading being 1.5, math being 2.0, right, and English being, English language learners being 2%. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion as you stated, but I also want to amend the motion to have the goals posted on the website once they're finalized and with the updated goals.
Perfect. Thank you.
I second it.
Perfect. Motion to approve with all the changes being indicated in addition to the amendment has been made by Representative Marquez, seconded by Board Member Apodaca Flores. Is there any discussion? Yes, Superintendent.
So I think that's a great idea, to be transparent. One of the things the board talked about, though, was putting the board goals in everyday language for the layman at home. That's like what all these big words, like we talk in EduSpeak, and I recognize that fully. Do you want them from the everyday language and then what we're asking to increase? Because that's what we're putting on our website, public facing, but we can put PBP in a different spot.
I think it probably makes sense to do both.
Okay.
There's probably a page that's trying to make it as
User-friendly.
user-friendly and for anybody to be able to understand. But I also think just updating this document that's in board docs for today, based on kind of how we wrote the goals last year, but with the new numbers, the 2% and the 1.5%, or for each category. Once this document's updated, I think the public should be able to access it and follow along as we determine the district's success and the superintendent's success in terms of meeting performance-based pay.
Thank you.
Okay, so again, a motion has been made to approve the performance-based plan with all the changes being indicated in addition to the public information by Representative Marquez and seconded by Board Member Apodaca Flores. On the motion, those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, the next item is 6I, approval of the revised professional agreement procedures for classified employees for the 26-27 school year. Is there a motion to approve the items as presented?
I second.
Motion to approve the item as presented has been made by Board Member Cross and seconded by Clerk Meyer. Is there any discussion? On the motion, those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 7C, adoption of the 26-27 expenditure budget. Dr. D. Alba, we did all that, correct? Yeah.
Yes,
Perfect.
the administration recommends the approval.
Perfect, thank you. So motion to adopt, who did the motion? Perfect, who's second? Perfect. Motion to adopt 26,
Excuse me,
27.
President Pastor, can
Yes.
we vocalize who's did the first and the second, please, for the record?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to do. Yeah. Motion to adopt the 26, 27 exponential budget has been made by Board Member Cross and seconded by Clerk Meyer. Is there any discussion? On the motion, those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions?
I think we need a roll call vote.
Oh,
for
excuse me.
budget.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. All right, roll call vote. Board Member Napa.
Aye.
Board Member Cross.
Aye.
Board Member Oliver.
Aye.
Board Member Apodaca Flores.
Aye.
Representative Marquez.
Aye.
Clerk Meyer.
Aye.
And myself and I, motion carries. All right. So for items 8A, 8B, 8C, I would like to motion to bring them all together and approve as stated.
Second.
Perfect. Motion has been made by myself and seconded by Representative Marquez to approve of all of them together as presented. On the motion, those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Motion carries. The next 5 items are for information only, no action required. Receipt of revised governing board regulations, KFRA, community use of school facilities, KFRB, community use of school facilities. Receipt of revised governing board exhibits, KFEA, community use of school facilities, KFEC, community use of school facilities, and repeal governing board exhibit, KFEB, community use of school facilities. This item is information only, and though no action is required, receipt of governing board regulations, KFRA, KFRB, governing board exhibits KFEA, KFEC, and the repeal of governing board exhibit KFEB are acknowledged. Item 9A, request of future agenda items. Members, are there any items you'd like to recommend to be considered for future board meeting agendas? Going once, going twice? Cool. Our last item is 9B, motion to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn the special meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Perfect. A motion has been made by Board Member Napa and seconded by Board Member Oliver. On the motion, those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. This special meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.